Right out. She'd like me.
Let's say it's 9 o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order. I will start by establishing a quorum with the commission. We'll start online there with looks like we've got Commissioner Harbaugh.
Present. Good morning, everyone.
Morning. Morning. Commissioner Taylor.
Present.
Commissioner Morris. Here. Commissioner Metropolis. Here. Okay, with all members of the commission, we have a quorum. Go around the table here now and have the lottery directors introduce themselves. And I know we've got a new employee and some introductions, but let's start actually with they've got the directors, but Chet, go ahead and we'll start with you.
Hi.
Introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Commission. I'm Chet McLean. I work in the governor's budget office. I was asked by management to help provide some assistance on the accounting side. I will prepare or present the quarterly financial statements to you.
Ann Charpentier, Sales and Marketing Director for the lottery.
Boyd, Finance Director for the lottery. Bill Charpentier, IT Services Director.
Bob Brown, Director. Brian Cosker, Security Director.
Okay. Director Brown, let's do the new employee introductions.
Well, thanks. First, I just want to say, hey, thank you to everybody for being here today. It's great to see everybody here and all the people that have chose to attend. It's good to see you all. So I got a couple of things, and one thing I do want to start with too is I just want to say thanks to the governor's budget office for the assistance that they've been giving us in this let's say time of transition here. So, but anyway, we have two new employees. We'll call them new, but Jolene Boyd, she is our new finance director. She has worked at, and why I don't say completely new, she has worked at the lottery since 2008, which is a substantial amount of time. She has worked across admin, accounting, and the IT department. So she brings a very solid, well-rounded understanding of what the lottery is and who the lottery is and where we are going forward. So she has, outside of work, she loves reading, watching her kids play sports, and spending time outdoors. So she's just a good gal in a good spot. And we are very happy to have her. And I will say the one thing that I've noticed so far with her is that first off, she's doing a fantastic job, and her interaction with her team is fabulous. She's working well with her team, and so it's good to have her on board. Welcome. It's kind of funny for me to be welcoming you to the lottery, but or to a new position, but we're happy to have you, and just pleased that we could move you into that position. Next on my list, we have Deetra, and I didn't write Deetra's last name down.
Yes.
Deetra, she is our new graphic design. She's originally from Moore, Montana, near Lewistown, went to school in Bozeman, received a Bachelor of Fine Arts in graphic design. Deetra has over 14 years of design experience, came to Ellen in 2011, is happily married with a 3-year-old daughter and a Cocker Spaniel named Eddie, who you see running around here occasionally. So he's always welcome. So she's just part of the family, and just welcome, Deetra. And with that, we'll pass it back to you.
Okay. Looks like we have an initial opportunity for public comment on the agenda. Is there anything in the room that or online that folks want us to address during this meeting of the commission? Okay, well, as we vote on.
Rhonda Wiggers.
Okay.
Good morning. This is Rhonda Wiggers. I just wanted to ask if there was a change in how we notice the meetings. I did not. I'm on the notice list, and I know a couple of other people who are as well in the industry, and none of us got this meeting notice. So would someone check and make sure that your public comment, public notice system is working, please?
I can absolutely do that. I will re-verify your email address, Rhonda, and confirm. And if you have any other names who may have not received the email, I will check their email addresses out as well. It was sent out Monday morning.
I know John Iverson and Shauna Helfer did not get it as well because I did check with everyone to see if someone else had gotten it.
Okay, very good. I'll follow up with that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rhonda. Anything else? Okay. Seeing none, I'm gonna hand it off to Director Costigan for the security report.
Thanks. Phil, can you bring that up?
You bet.
Got a couple of different things I wanted to address today. One, I want to go over some audit and internal stuff that we had going. And then in addition to that, like we had previously discussed, we've made 2 changes to some parameters on some sports bet stuff that I want to have you guys address. That's it, Phil. Next slide. All right, we'll start off with the game parameters. What we did here, this game parameters specifically had to do with baseball, update the language to address handling baseball postponements, and you can see the change in there. We're removing, in each case, postponement and match all markets are considered void unless all match continues within 48 hours of the official time. We just changed it to, in case of postponement, all markets considered void unless the match is starts on the scheduled day based on local time. So it's just a change. Make sure you guys are aware of that. And then the next one, Phil. And this is the same, clarify what system wagers are within it. And it has to do in the section of the holding of fixed odds and wagering games. We added some additional language in there to tighten it up. So the new language will read, in some sports wagering games, it is possible to use round robin or systems. Round robins or systems are parlay type wagers in which at least 3 sections are required. In round robins or system wagers, the players can win even if their teams are not correct. For example, in a 4 betting event, our predicted team A, B, and C and D, and round robin of chosen says they equal 6 parlay combinations of 2 sporting events each. Selections from the same game events and round robin tickets are not allowed and will not be counted within the round robin payout calculations. There was some discussion and confusion within some of the players over how this worked. By putting this parameter in, it clarifies it for the player, and that way we have less disputed tickets regarding. Any questions regarding this change?
Just gonna add on, this is a new method we're doing. We've made these changes, but we want to present them to you so you guys are aware. Really, it's just verbiage change. It's adding language to make it more clear, to make it more transparent on sports betting wagers. And if you guys do have any questions about it, we're here to answer those questions, but it's based upon book. Tony has his hands raised.
Tony?
Could we go back to the first one for a second, please?
Sure.
So the unchanged language at the bottom of that section, does the 48 hours need to be corrected there as well?
No, that's an abandoned match as opposed to a postponed match.
Oh,
So-
okay. Okay,
I-
I've got you.
We give them
Thank
48.
you.
Yep. And again, this is all based upon the book's recommendations and the way they're processing these markets. So.
Any other comment?
So a rain on baseball is just
Postponement.
post,
Well,
so
right now, is it?
it's just a void
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Even if they shift it to a doubleheader the next day.
Next day, it's if it's same day, if they're able to, if it's just a delay, same day, it won't be void.
So the way that would work, they'd have to remake, they get credit for their initial bet, they remake the bet on the day they played the 2 games.
Yeah.
There would be a new market created for the
Right.
one game, so if they could bet on that.
All right, next thing I want to address is our 2023 financial audit. You all should have received a copy of it. Either it's right in front of you or you'll see it in the mail. I think all you have in front of you. And then additionally, it's online at the legislative audit website. And you can, if you want to read it online. It's going to be actually presented tomorrow to the audit committee, so Bob will be up there tomorrow. We had to jump through a little bit of hoops here because we're not supposed to talk about audits until they're presented, but it's been published, so we're good. We had one recommendation based on a finding that we did not make a timely transfer of to STEM scholarships and everything like that. I'll address the reasoning for that here in a minute, so just be patient with me. And it also recommended that we improve our controls and eliminate any single points of failure that we have with that. And to that end, Chet and Jolene have already taken those steps. We're doing some additional cross training, and that should eliminate that. And the controls have been put in place. Chet was kind enough to put together a new checklist for that stuff. You know, coming from your viewpoint and mine, we would come to a meeting, we would make a decision to make the transfer, and we assumed the transfer was made after that. Well, that's where we had the audit meeting. The transfer was not immediately made, it was made at a later date. So that was the weakness within the system. I'm going to continue to move forward with that. Just in case you're interested, the next audit will start here within a couple of weeks. So we never end on the audit piece and we're always going. So Jolene, in her new position, will be lucky enough to deal with them in that capacity there. Bill, go on the next slide. This is a little bit more challenging for me to talk about, our finance director vacancy, and that's no reflection on Jolene, by the way. In the beginning of March of this year, Armin died. Armin had been ill for several years. And it did not help us on certain issues that we were dealing with. When he died, immediately it left us. We were in the middle of the 2023 audit. We had to figure out how we completed that. We had to figure out how we could provide some leadership and continuity within the work unit over here to make sure the job was getting done. And then we had to determine any shortfall and issues that we had within the accounting department and finance department. Our immediate actions were we notified the appropriate individual. Had a conversation with Leo about it several times. We also notified the governor's office, legislative audit, Office of Budget and Program Planning. We talked to a lot of different people, and as a security director, immediately when there's a person in a key position that passes on or immediately leaves, it brings up concerns for me and how are we going to address those and how we're going to ensure that the next person comes in with a clean slate to deal with. And we're aware of any outstanding issues that we have. So that was our efforts there. We also had to keep the place running. Jolene at the time was working in the finance sector, in the IT section, but had the most experience in finance. Worked with Phil and Bob, and we decided that we would bring Jolene back to finance, and where she started to cover and start to address the issues that we had identified, and came up with several that we had not identified. Most of them were related to Armin's absences and his illness. So we continued to do that and move forward. Chet came on board, and you've already dealt with had Chet give you one financial report again, and he's going to do this one this week. I'd like to really thank the Office of Budget and Program Planning for stepping up on this and helping us out. It's been godsend. We would have been really in deep if we didn't have that happen. Our way forward is obviously we've appointed Jolene as the finance director. We continue to identify and correct any issues as they are present. And I want to stress that at no time do we believe that there is any fraudulent activity. What we do believe happened, that there was mistakes made that related to his absence. So we want to improve our procedures and implement cross-training within the finance section to allow us to not have some of these issues occur. It's always a constant state of improvement. We're always looking for better. So I'm happy to address any questions you folks have. By the way, this leads back to the audit finding. Armin, had been dealing with this for several years. And that's why that transfer was. So, any questions?
I don't know if that's a question, maybe, but it seems to me in this whole thing, this just kind of baffles me that this could happen. There are no checks and balances. We just left it up to one guy and relied on him to make sure that this whole, that's a lot of money. It's a big, this is a big deal. So, and we relied on that. So moving forward, how are we going to prevent that? Is somebody going I would have thought, especially the millionaire, that deposit or transfer didn't get made. Why? You would think you would see that, like, hey, it's not there. Like, so I just guess I would hope there'd be more eyes on some of this stuff to go forward. That this could.
I agree with you that it was definite weakness. We have relied on legislative audit in the past to ensure when they come through, but as you can see now, they're at least 2 years behind. So, they're doing the 23 audit. They just completed the 23 audit. They're going to the 24, 25 audit next. And I agree. So that's why what we're doing is put in some other procedures in place that give us that checks and balances that you're talking about. And by implementing them, we shouldn't have this issue.
And I'll say to that too, is one of the, 23 that happened before I was here. But one of the issues that we've been making perfectly clear, I think, is that no matter what the position is in the lottery, one of the things I've been encouraging is that we be sure that we have that backup. If one of us walks out in the street and gets hit by a truck, we can continue to operate, and there are people in that position that can fill that and do that. And I think that's exactly what's gonna happen within the finance department. And that's where I say, you know, when I mentioned, you know, her, Jolene working with her team, I think that's exactly what's gonna, you know, it's all gonna take time to work itself out. You know, and I can tell you too, also, you know, we were recognizing that we had some issues, or, you know, there was always a concern, and we were working on those issues and our concerns, you know, moving forward as, you know, and then we get into the situation that we're in, you know, we're working on those issues, and then our finance director passes away. You know, so we were taking steps moving in the right direction, I believe. Maybe some of these steps should have been taken, you know, years ago. But I believe we're taking steps in the right direction, and I think everybody has taken some of those steps, and it's a real eye opener whenever you begin to see some of the issues that weren't maybe covered.
Go ahead. I think what we're talking about under recommendation 1 is the improvement of internal controls and developing written procedures. So can you briefly summarize those written procedures? How many people will cross-check this to make sure these things are done?
I think Chet can probably answer the question.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy. Commission, so written procedures are really important, especially in times of transition. And it appears that that there were no written procedures in place. And so when I came on board and prepared the second quarter financial statements, you know, one of the first questions I asked Joey Brian was, show me the written procedures. There wasn't. And so as part of the assistance that I've been providing to the lotteries, I wrote a checklist on how to prepare the financial schedules. And as part of that, with this checklist, it would require the preparer, which is presumably Jolie, she will give her signature that she prepared this checklist, and then she will hand it off to somebody else to review. Tentatively, we have online, the Department of Administration has an internal auditor who will then be handed the financials and the checklist, and she will then go through the checklist and the financials to put a second set of eyes. And she then will sign off on the checklist as well. And then presumably the financials should be ready for publication at that point. In the past, that never happened. It's always just one person going forward. The way we've designed the procedures is that there'll be at least 2 sets of eyes on the financials are presented. And being that the internal auditor is either there's sufficient independence, then the internal auditor will not feel worried about, you know, criticizing Jolene's financials, and hopefully will be an objective viewpoint on them. That's kind of how we've designed things with that.
Are you referring to the director of DOA? Or
the Department of Administration in their director's office has an internal auditor on staff.
so that's the person that we're going to be able to come in, countersigning, co-signing. Okay.
The important aspect about that, sorry to interrupt, is that the person that does the secondary review of the financials before they be published needs to have sufficient skills, knowledge, and abilities. And so if we handed them to Brian, sorry, I don't need to.
That's okay.
This is probably a compliment, actually, because accountants can be just people help me. Being one. You know, so you want that knowledge, skills, and ability to be doing that review.
Right. Okay, so now I have to ask an obvious question. That's what lawyers do. The quarterly transfers that were missed, that were caught in this audit that ends as of June 30th, 2023. Those have been made up.
They were late. They weren't missed, they were late.
I was planning on bringing this up in my financial statement presentation, but one of the recommendations that I made to management, and they've adopted at this point, is the financials in the past would go through a lot of, when the financials were prepared, the preparer would go through a lot of work to move activities from one period to another, from one quarter to another quarter. And what that ended up resulting in is the bottom line on your financials were different than your cash capacity. So a number of times the transfers were what we call accrued, but the actual cash flow for the transfer couldn't be made until, say, several months down the road. And that happened because the preparer was moving transactions, say revenues, from one quarter to another. And so that's a cash basis versus accrual basis of accounting. And I suggested to management that instead of doing all of those adjustments on a quarterly basis, instead prepare financials more on a budgetary basis or more on a cash basis. I don't want to say a true cash basis presentation because that's a technical term, but more on a budgetary basis. And I believe this will solve a lot of the cash flow problems. So the numbers that will be presented to you in the quarterly financials when you're approving those transfers will be based more on your capacity to actually make a cash transfer instead of accrued transactions preventing you from making that cash transfer in a timely basis. So yeah. I believe that the new financial statement presentation will solve the cash flow issue.
Yeah, is there some kind of, almost like a management or a report to the commission on a modified basis like that, probably? Rather, because I mean, the value is in those true accrual financials, they kind of, the goal of making those, moving that money around is to sort of report things in sort of a time when the money was earned, let's say, rather than when it was actually collected. But it's trying to actually figure out how much cash is there. Sometimes those reports would be, unless you were looking at the work paper and showed all the ways that he was moving that money around and making those accruals between the two different periods, it would be very difficult to see, get to point, revenue less expense equals, whatever's left that gets transferred is very different than what the actual cash is sitting on the books on in an accrual basis financial versus cash. So, yeah, again, I think that a lot of this, I was talking to these folks earlier about how, my experience in auditing is I took like a couple auditing classes when I was in college, and I was like, I don't want to do that. So I don't have a lot of experience with this. I think just like attorneys, there's different specializations with accountants, and we're all probably obnoxious in our own ways, I should say. But I mean, I just remember from my auditing classes like that these type of things that looking back, all the red flags of somebody in their position for a very long time, right? There becomes a certain level of complacency in that person's competency, and just like, oh, well, Armin's been doing this forever, he really knows what he's doing, and or complacency in that these audits are being performed. But then we're looking at this and it's like, oh, this is a 2023 audit. When I picked it up, I would be expecting to see a 2024 audit at this point, right? We're getting ready to close the books for the fiscal year June 30, 2025 right now. We're just seeing a 2023 audit. So, and I think the commission has had there's been a lot of sort of other distracting factors in the commission the past year and a half that have been going on. And I think this kind of just is something that just kind of slipped under the rug. And I wish that, looking back, I wish we could go back and do things a little bit differently. But, one question that I had, maybe this is a question for Chet, is like, as part of that known audit, because when I was going to college, it was during the time of Enron and all that stuff, when they started to really, there was those PCAOB standards about how internal controls had to be actually audited. Do the government audits, is there an internal, and I thought there was an internal control piece of this. Obviously, there's a finding on it. I mean, wouldn't written procedures be something that should have been tagged as a finding in an audit in the past if there's written procedures, I guess? And that's part of the complacency piece of this, where you're like, okay, you're looking at these audits coming through and you think that one of the things that you would expect to have in an internal control environment would be written procedures, or is that? Am I wrong to be, to be complacent and thinking that there would be something like that if it's getting audited?
So those are really great questions, and there's probably a longer technical answer that for you with, but I'll say that things are evolving in audit standards such that the requirements for written procedures are becoming hardened, right? Becoming more, but in the past, that you could, as a manager, say, well, we have internal controls, they're just not necessarily documented. And there's certain caveats to that, but I certainly agree that going forward, there should be some written procedures in place. In my experience, and I've been in quite a few troubled entities in my career, some very troubled, much more troubled than the lottery, for example. It's always like situations similar to this, turnover type situations that drive distress in entities. So having those written procedures in place goes a long way to help train the new person coming on. So right now is a great opportunity for the lottery to develop those procedures as Jolene steps into this new role.
Yeah. Really great.
To address that whole question about the written procedures and things like that. Yearly, the lottery goes through a process where the managers verify that the employees have the procedures written, we call them desk manuals, and that they're done. We check it off, we keep track of it, that we've done that, and then move on. The relationship between the director and the senior management is, do you have your stuff done? Do your people have your stuff done? And I say yes. Bob doesn't come down and look at every one that I have. So there's a level of trust on the senior management, and shame on us, because with Armin, it's obvious that he did, but not to the level that he did. On another note with that, we were not completely ignorant of that there were issues with Armin. The day that he died, Bob and I were supposed to be meeting with him and addressing these issues. We had a meeting scheduled and he didn't show up. And that's when I went down to Townsend and found him. So it's not like we were sleeping at the wheel. Totally. I mean, did we miss stuff? Absolutely. But we were attempting to do what we needed to do by the situation. And yeah, crappy situation. Sorry. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, it says here that someone else should be cross-trained, but you said that it would go to the Department of Administration. Are you cross-training somebody in-house?
I will be, once I have it, once I fully understand it, I fully intend to train somebody else in-house within my team.
Feel that you have adequate staff to,
At this time, yes.
So I have a question that related to that and the written procedures, which is when will these things be done? I mean, it sounds like the procedures perhaps could be done soon, this summer.
They're done.
They're done.
Yes, they're done as of, well, so I would expect them to be a living document, so to evolve throughout time. When I provided them to Jolene, I said, I will not be offended if you make modifications to this, however you need to word it, but yeah, it's a 8-page long checklist that has been prepared and is ready.
Okay, so it's somehow adopted by the management as this is what we're gonna do. We're bound by it. Okay. And then in terms of cross training, when do you think you can have that?
I'd probably give it at least 6 months to a year. I mean, I'm not fully trained myself, so I'm still learning also.
Well, I appreciate your candor, but 6 months would be better than a year.
That's true.
and I think that, again, what Chet's saying about the opportunity to change here, I think having the opportunity as someone of Chet's caliber and expertise to kind of get in here and dig around a little bit, I think is going to be a huge value to Director Boyd going forward, and the staff, and I think it's as the commission is having, now that there's also going to be this resource out there too in the governor's office. It's going to be able to be a resource if something comes up during that cross training or questions or things like that. I'm assuming you guys are going to have a pretty open communication, that sort of thing. Yeah, that would be tremendous. Anything else before we move on to the presentation of the March financials?
Actually, I have one more comment. I've sat on audit committee before, and one finding, I mean, I think that's pretty good. I mean, I've sat on them where there have been 20 findings for an agency or a division. So one finding, I mean, even though it's a serious one, I think that means you guys are doing a good job.
Thank you.
We'll see what the 2024 and 2025, I think those ones might have some more findings.
Oh, no, they're gonna be perfect.
But I think that in the spirit of, the changes and these sorts of things that are kind of ongoing, I think that's gonna be, we just need to be patient with that, understanding that this is moving on the right track.
One more thing, I mean, just the Armand whole thing is terrible. It's unfortunate. But we as commissioners and the public and the other associations, we rely on all of you guys that you're putting out truthful information to us. It's stuff that we can take to the bank, because that's where it all comes from, to us, so that we can make a decision, make a vote. And I think it kind of puts a stain on all of us a bit, and that we need to make sure that everything is really on the up and up, and that people can trust us, trust you, trust us, make these decisions. And I'm not saying that I don't. I think that you guys do a wonderful job providing us information. This puts a little dark cloud above it.
That, Richard, that's one of the reasons initially, as soon as this occurred, first thing we did is we notified legislative audit, we notified the governor's office, we notified Leo. We let everyone know because we wanted to be totally transparent about it. And let, as we could. I mean, we didn't know what we didn't know at that point. And do I wish that we would have had a better handle of things earlier on? Absolutely. Because the last thing I want to do is sit here and tell you some guys something that isn't true. That's not who I am, and that's not how anybody is on this staff.
Well, I didn't even know that the Armand was deceased until that last meeting. So I got no communication. I think that would be important to us all.
I left you a message the same day I contacted all the other. But anyway, that's just what it is, I mean, it's not a big debate, obviously, but yeah, we did everything we could do to notify everybody that needed to be notified. And I'll say too with this, and once we've established this new procedure and it's beginning to work too, and it's one of the things I was working with Armand on. Because right now the director, myself, I go on what everybody's telling me. Okay, this is because there's no, I don't have a book that I go, okay, was this done today? Was this done today? And was one of the things I was working with him on is, hey, give me a checklist as well. Yeah, I know once a week you put out your weekly report. Every quarter we do this. We've got to report to whoever it is. Give me that list as well, because that's just another point that I can just say, hey, it's done. And when it's not, then we can really explore the reasons why and move on from there. But I think it's growing and a moving forward process, and I think it will continue to grow, and I think our controls throughout, and it's really that's been my request to everybody. Okay, let's begin to have these checks and balances in place. So when something like this does happen, we're not going, hey, was that transfer made? Ask that question.
Has there been consideration of whether there's a role for legislative? With some of these developments, so I have the highest respect.
I have had discussions with others. And legislative audit at times is, don't tell you what the problem is, but they're reluctant because of their audit law to give you how to fix it. And so, and I understand that one, so but hence why we reached out to B of A and the internal audit. That's what that, yeah, the deputy director where we could utilize. And really hired Chet, you know, and they were okay with that. And they're, well, they want to participate in that. That's what attached to it. So she's far enough away to give that independence look at it. Stuff.
Yeah, it becomes a conflict of interest. If they're trying to help you set it up and then they're trying to examine how you're doing, it really becomes a conflict in there. You know, and even simple example, they're in here working and they stay to themselves. I mean, quite frankly, the audit stays to themselves. We were having a lunch and stuff out here. Obviously you're going to invite them for lunch. And they stayed away from that because it begins to be a personal relationship that they have with people in that, and you can't be completely objective when you have that.
Okay. I will think that was a good discussion, and I think that yeah, you move forward here, and I think that, you know, as what kind of get what Steve said, it's like, yeah, looking at this thing, it's like all the, I'm the CPA on the commission and all this stuff's going wrong. I feel that for sure, looking at what I could have done, to go back through and get in and start looking at the details. But again, I think that when you read a case study on this type of thing, when someone's maybe having a health issue or why quitting their job or something, and you're on that thing, and there's just a level of layers of trust and complacency that happen on this stuff, and I think it happens in every time, and I'm certainly guilty of that. And looking back, I think that with my background, I should have been there to say, hey, what are we sure everything's cool with this? And Brian was for the past, I don't know when that was. It was a while back.
Yeah.
Approached me and said, hey, something's going on. And actually, it was funny that Chet ended up coming on board because I was the first one that I said, because I had known Chet from our time on the State Society of CPAs together. And I said, there's this government accounting guy that would just be perfect for this. And it ended up backwardly working out to where Chet was the person that came on board. But I think that, it's something that's completely out of my wheelhouse, but it's like the signs were there for somebody to look at this and say something, there should be some question that are being asked, So certainly that's a issue going forward. And I think that, when I came onto the commission, the commissioner, the CPA on the commission before me was a CPA from Butte named Bob Crippen, and we both kind of did the same thing. We're both kind of tax accountants, right? And I thought that was one of the comments from somebody. Armin had made it to me sometimes. He's like, yeah, they always want us to get an auditor in here on this commission. I said, yeah, then now looking back at that, however that long, 10, 15 years later, it's like, yeah, that's probably a good idea at some point. We should. And I think they brought, Dwayne on Iverson on the commission a couple of years ago, and he would have been Dwayne is just so sharp and so on top of all this stuff. I don't think this happens. Honestly, it's on me still, but that's beside the point. So yeah, that's well taken, and I think that I think we all recognize what happened and I'm just glad to hear. I'm thankful again. I think I'm super thankful to Chet for coming on board. And I'm excited for the transition, the opportunity and the path forward of this thing getting going on the right track. So, with that, sure.
Can I offer just maybe a piece of an idea that might give a little solace and assuage some of the concerns? So the lottery as an institution is really not a big institution. Certainly some of the revenues are big, but as in terms of staff, I've been in quite a few entities around the state, whether it be local governments or it be state agencies. And I oftentimes find scenarios where you lack segregation of duties, as we like to call it in the industry, where one person perhaps has an inordinate amount of responsibility on their shoulders. This is actually very common here in Montana. Because it's expensive, right, to hire a bunch of extra people that have multiple sets of eyes on the transactions in the accounting. So I'm not surprised to see this situation where a large amount of responsibility was housed in one person. And especially when you have somebody that's in their position for a long time. This happens in local governments, municipalities a lot, where you have the city treasurer, and it's usually she has been in her position for 20 or 30 years, and she has it all memorized. She doesn't need written procedures because she knows everything. And then she transitions on for whatever reason. And then the entity then experiences struggles and a bit of pain as it makes that transition. It's kind of what's happened here too. So I just wanted to mention that it's not completely unusual. This isn't a situation that is grossly egregious or something along those lines. It's certainly something that needs to be addressed, though, right? And having those written procedures in place is very helpful. And the lottery kind of got double walloped here. Not only did you have the transition of somebody that had been in place for a number of years and he had everything memorized in his mind, but then the illness kind of encouraged him, that's probably the wrong word, but or incentivized him to reprioritize the priorities of his own life, right? And so you kind of got double walloped in that you didn't have the time really to set up that transition. So I just wanted to offer that. This is not unique to the lottery.
Appreciate that. Commissioners, financial report. Okay, I'll turn it back over to Chet, I believe, or if you want to.
I have just thanks for the welcome. I'm settling into the role. I'm learning a lot and I'm acclimating well to the managerial team, and I'm starting to find a rhythm. And I'd really like to thank the accounting staff for their dedication and support. It's been instrumental during this transition. And I'm excited to see the work ahead and what we can achieve moving forward. I'll turn it over to Chet.
So we have the financial statements in front of us. I guess some introductory remarks. I don't want to be repeat what we've already said, but there has been a number of adjustments that weren't posted to the accounting records, and that affected last quarter's financial results as well as this quarter's financial results, which is meant to say the reliability of these financial statements is limited. There are some known misstatements in these financial statements. One, for example, that we know about last quarter is the Montana Millionaire program. When we get to the income statement, you will see a 0 for Montana Millionaire revenues. And we know that they should be $10 million. So $10 million is a significant number. It was posted in the fourth quarter. These are the third quarter financial statements. And so these financial statements do not reflect that $10 million revenue. So there is some limited reliability to these financial statements. With that in mind, however, there are some aspects of the financials that are still worth presenting to you. One of the important aspects of of these quarterly financials is so that you guys can approve the quarterly transfer. And I want to mention, just like last quarter, we decided to be low risk on the determination of the transfer. And it, just like last quarter, is going to be smaller than what it probably should be. And I'll talk more about that when we get into that part of the financial statements, but I wanted to at least alert you at the beginning of my presentation that the recommended transfer is a smaller number than normal. Now, I did have conversations with people in the budget office about this, and they are comfortable with this idea that we are moving forward conservatively, which is to say, we're being cognizant of risk. We don't want to make a transfer that's larger than it should be, certainly, because that's a more precarious type of situation. With all of that in mind, though, the idea is that the fourth quarter transfer, because fourth quarter is where a lot of the correcting journals that Jolie has recently posted have been made, the fourth quarter is where the true up will take place. The other thing I wanted to mention in terms of introductory remarks, now I've already alluded to this, is that the financials going forward are going to be a bit different. And it's gonna, I think, gonna help to solve the cash flow problems for the transfer. So the finding was in the 2023 audit was that while lottery accrued for transfers, it only made 3 cash flows. So, and the reason there was that accrual versus cash basis difference is because of the accruals that are being made to the accounting records. And so going forward, the financials that are going to be presented to the commission are going to be a closer alignment to a budgetary basis than what we call a GAAP, or generally accepted accounting principles basis. Generally accepted accounting principles requires that the accruals be made, whereas a budgetary basis does not necessarily require that. Now, in terms of legal requirements on making that change, I did research the Montana Code. The code says that the lottery shall prepare annual and quarterly financial reports about the net revenues, for example, of the lottery. It does not require generally accepted accounting principles to be the basis for your quarterly financial. So you're on sound ground for making this change in presentation to your quarterly financial reports. The reason I say that this way is because your annual financial reports will still need to be in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And your annual financial statements that get presented to the auditors for the audit will still need to make the various adjustments. But I don't foresee that being a big deal, frankly, because of the fiscal year in close. There's a whole procedure that the entire state goes through every year in the month of July, where everybody goes through processes to make sure that everything is reported in the correct period. So as part of that fiscal year in closing process, your annual financial statements will become a full GAAP basis presentation. But the quarterly financials that will be presented to you so that you can make a decision about what that transfer will be closer related to a cash basis. And so that timing issue that is discussed in the audit finding will be resolved by making this change. Hopefully I didn't over-explain that. Okay. Yeah, and so I'll just jump into it then on the statement of net position, which is page 2 in your financial statements. So what I'll do is I'll go through each section of the financials and kind of draw out a couple of things that I think warrant your attention. The first thing I want to point out is current assets are about $1.5 million less than they were this time last year. Notice in the cash line, though, that the cash actually goes up a bit. That makes sense to me because last quarter we proposed an audit or a transfer that was smaller than what it normally is. And so in your third quarter financials, we're seeing your cash inch up a little bit. The next thing I wanted to point out in the current asset section is your receivables. Notice that this one's about $2.5 million smaller than it would normally be. So the issue for the lottery is about these accrual entries. The receivable account is one of the accounts that are implicated by those accruals. And so while we're seeing a little bit of variability in your receivables that we're reporting for the third quarter, I'm not surprised by it, given that we have a lot of cleanup taking place in fourth quarter for your receivable balances. So that's something I want to point out there. In the next section, under non-current assets, notice that both this quarter and this quarter last year are sitting about $1.9 million. The accrual entries that are at issue do not typically impact non-current assets. And so there you're seeing a more stable number. And I offer that as a piece of evidence that really where the accounting problems lie are in those accrual entries. And so by seeing a more stable number in the non-current assets, I'm hoping that will give you a little bit of assurance that we've properly identified the problem, and that's where we're focusing on. Scrolling down to the current liabilities section, notice that the total non-current liabilities have decreased approximately $1.5 million from this time last year. Again, that is a number that I've already mentioned. The current assets also decreased by about $1.5 million. And again, it's all going to be related to those accrual entries. A couple items to note within the current liability section. Notice that the multi-state prize liability is just short of $1 million in the current liability section. I'm sorry, the estimated prize liability is how it's labeled. Just short of $1 million for the current year, but it was $4 million last year. Again, this is one of those entries that have been implicated by those accrual entries. Another item that I wanted to point out to you is unearned revenue. Again, another account that's implicated by those accrual entries. It is significantly higher than it was this time last year. So unearned revenue is an interesting account because it has a correlation to revenues. Unearned revenues and revenues. When I get to the next page, you're going to see that your revenues that are being reported in the financial statements are significantly down. But here you're seeing the unearned revenues being significantly higher than they otherwise would have been. So the way that it works is basically once unearned revenues become earned, then they become revenues. And so that relationship is reasonable and makes sense. And so I just wanted to highlight that for your attention. Again, to give you some assurance that although while there's some limited reliability to these financial results, they are making sense to me in terms of the problem being isolated in those accrual entries that were not being made, and Jolene's been cleaning up in the fifth quarter. The last thing I wanted to point out in the current liability section is the transfer obligation. Of course, that's a primary objective, I think, of this portion of the commission meeting is that you need to be approving the transfer obligation. The transfer obligation, as I've already mentioned, will be a bit smaller than it normally would be. This transfer obligation, however, is the combination or the sum total of the third quarter transfer as well as the fourth quarter, or excuse me, I just misspoke. The second quarter transfer and the third quarter transfer. So the second quarter transfer that we talked about and you approved last committee meeting was made in the fourth quarter, right? And so it still needs to show as a transfer obligation or a liability as of the third quarter. So I just wanted to point that out, and we'll talk more about the transfers on the next page as well. Scrolling down to the non-current liability section, similar to the non-current assets section that I described a moment ago, you're seeing much more stable results. Both this quarter and this quarter last year are about $3.9 million. So your non-current liabilities are typically related to post-employment benefits. like your pension liability and your OPEB liability, which is typically healthcare, that's promised after an employee retires from employment at the state. Both of these liabilities are outside of the control of the lottery, excuse me, and are determined at the statewide level. So again, we're seeing stable results there, which again points to the problem lies in those accrual entries, not pervasively throughout the other areas of the accounting. I'll pause there. Are there any questions on the balance sheet before moving to the income statement? Okay. Page 3 on the income statement. Here, I alluded to it a moment ago, you see some significant decreases in your revenues. In fact, operating revenues of for this quarter of $20 million is a decrease of about $18 million compared to last year's third quarter. That's about a 50% reduction. I would point to certain things not being posted into the accounting records. Montana Millionaire, which was $10 million in revenues, has not been posted. That'll be reflected in the fourth quarter financial statements. And so this section has some limited reliability. If you look at the direct gain costs, you're going to see similar kind of results there where the direct gain costs decrease approximately $13 million from this time last year. That's a 13% decrease. Again, that's all pointing to these accrual entries not being posted into the correct period. And then that most of these revenues and direct gain costs will be reflected in the fourth quarter financial statements. In the next section, the operating expenses, what I wanted to highlight for you here is, in contrast to the instability or limited reliability that we were seeing in revenues and direct gain costs, here these numbers are much more stable. Operating expenses of $1.3 million, both this quarter and this time last year, and as well as the year-to-date columns, the final two columns, those also are showing much more stable results, which indicates again that the problem is isolated, for lack of a better word, in the accrual entries for those revenues and direct gain costs. Scrolling down to the transfer section, what I wanted to highlight for you here is if you look in the year-to-date columns, the second two columns, the transfers that you had made at this time last year was about 20 million, and we're only sitting at about 10 million. So you're about half of where you probably should be. But as I alluded to a moment ago, I think that it will true up in the fourth quarter when those correcting journals were posted to savers. And with that, I'll pause if there's any questions.
On the so the revenues and the direct gain costs on the accruals, I guess this is a question that probably Hannah will answer in her sales report. I mean, are these completely unreliable, or are they like has sports bet been down, or is this just purely a fact on the financials that those numbers weren't being posted to be right accounts?
So, Mr. Chairman, these are not reflective of the actual sales.
That's what I thought. And yeah, and I guess a comment too, and like it makes sense on the accrual stuff where like if you think of accounting as like where you get like the raw transaction data, right? Money in and out of the account, that's kind of easy. That's kind of the baseline start of like where a trial balance would start. And then all these adjustments and accruals is where the accountant comes in and starts changing the numbers. So if Armin wasn't doing that, that's why these look so, messed up. So yeah.
So getting right back to the transfers a little bit, I wanted to mention this. So the transfer is about $2.5 million for this quarter. And that's quite a bit lower, but I calculated the amount as being reasonable based on the two following ideas. First of all, the amount of cash that you had available at the time that I was preparing the financial statements was about $4.2 million. So that's what's posted in savings right now. And then you have some current liabilities that's going to use up a portion of that cash available. And so the number of 2.5 million reflected your capacity to make a cash transfer within the next, say. The second thing that I looked at when determining the amount of the transfer is ideally what should happen every quarter is that the lottery makes zero net income. So all of your net revenues that you make are supposed to be, according to statute, transferred to the general fund or to the Office of Commission of Higher Education for the STEM transfer. And so that would result in zero increase to your fund balance every quarter. And so when I ran that calculation, that's exactly what happened. So if you look at the income statements in the change in net position row there, you see zero. It's particularly in the third column there. Yeah, right there where you cut your phone. That's ideally the way it should. You should have a zero increase to your fund balance. And then so in the fourth quarter, that will again happen where the transfer should be calculated. It will be higher than it normally does, but it will result in zero. Real quick, just in case to preempt any questions on this, I don't know if I mentioned this last quarter or not, but just so that you all have an awareness of what that big negative number is there for your total ending net position. Those are the sum total of the pension and OPEB liabilities, again, which you do not have any control over. These are actuarially determined liabilities that extend out, say, sometimes 30 years. And so that negative number for your net position is normal. That's what I wanted to convey to you. You will always have a net position that's negative that reflects the unfunded pension liabilities of the state. That makes sense. Your portion of the statewide pension liability is $2.3 million or $2.4 million, and that's normal. So you should always see that negative.
And I'm always happy that you guys have a pension liability because
It increased slightly.
It's gonna be doubled next quarter, right?
Any additional questions on Austin? So flipping to the next page, for your budget schedule, there's not much difference here. It's kind of the same as the previous page where the variability, you're going to see quite a bit of variability in the revenues and direct gain cost. So when we look at revenues as a percentage of budget, for this year, you're sitting at 65% of budget, but last year at this same time, you were at 82%. Again, that's all directly related to the accrual entries. The timing of it may be posted to the accounting records. I'd also point out that, again, Montana Millionaire, which is $10 million of revenues, will be reflected in next quarter's financials. Similarly, with the direct gain costs, they're at 58% of budget. Last year, they were at 86% of budget. So significantly down compared to last year due to those accrual entries. And then in the operating section for operating expenses, here we're going to see a more closer alignment to budget to actual. Your operating expenses are 68% of budget, but last year they were 70%. So close to alignment. Any questions on the budget schedule? Flipping to the next page, this is just a comment. I really like this schedule. I'm glad that the lottery prepares it. I could see a lot of use to it. One thing I'll highlight, Montana Millionaire, there's a big zero there in the middle for revenues. Another thing I wanted to highlight on this schedule is down at the bottom. I added a row for you all so that you could see it. And there's always been the profit as a percentage of revenue on the financial schedules, but I added prior year profit as a percentage of revenue. So that very bottom row, just so that you guys could all kind of compare this year to last year. So scratch game, for example, 6% profit as a percentage of revenue. Last year, it was at 10%. Powerball, 36%. Last year, 38%. You know, there's limited reliability to some of these numbers. One that I did want to highlight for you, though, is sports betting. So when we first started looking at all of the accounting, what, 2 months ago or whatever it was, the biggest hole in the accounting was sports betting. It was the largest numbers. And so Jolene jumped in there right away and started posting adjustments for sports bet. And so that's why you're seeing kind of a more stable number there. So this year, sports bet is, for this quarter, I should say, is 7% profit as a percentage of revenue, but last year it was 5%. So again, just as a highlight to give you all a little assurance that lottery is doing what they need to be doing to kind of shore up the bulkheads and get things where we need to be. Going on to the notes to the financial statements, on this first page, there's really one change that I made to your notes, and it's in that paragraph, scroll up about a third of the way down on the page. Yeah, right there where it says basis of presentation. I changed this sentence. As I discussed earlier, going forward, the lottery is going to present its financials on a quarterly basis, on a budgetary basis instead of a GAAP basis. So this sentence here used to say we present our financials in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Now going forward, it says the Montana Lottery prepares its quarterly financial statements from the transactions posted to the state's accounting system without adjustment. Transactions are posted to the accounting system in accordance with state law and state policy. And getting closer to a budgetary basis, as I indicated earlier, will give more reliable financial results, particularly to the commission when it's making a decision about what to approve for that cash transfer. You'll have better numbers in front of you so that when you're approving that transfer, it can actually be made in a timely timeframe. The last thing I wanted to mention, no, strike that. I'm not even going to mention that. It's not, I'm editing myself out. With that, I'll just open it up for any final questions. That's my presentation.
Chet. This is an action item, this. Financials. Should we approve them? I mean, we know they're not accurate,
Yeah, they
Right.
have limited reliability.
so. But we're okay to approve, you think, I mean,
I think so.
Yeah, and I think that reason for, I guess, saying that they're limited reliability is like just that, there's clearly some weird stuff when you're looking at them, but the conservative approach that Chet has taken and Jolene have taken to kind of go through here and trying to figure out, okay, where is this thing sitting in cash? What can we afford to transfer? Because really when we're approving the transfer, so we do need to approve the transfer. And I think that,
well, the transfer is going to go next quarter, right?
no, we transfer every quarter.
Oh,
So basically we need to move this 2.5 into the general fund and I think that, the way that if I followed what Chet was talking about creating a zero fund balance, I think it's certainly different than how that number was calculated in the past to my understanding. I think that seems like a more reasonable approach going forward, real typical approach to how you should approach that transfer is like, okay, how much cash came in, how much cash goes out, how much cash do we have on hand? That's what we should be transferring. Not necessarily based on all these adjustments and accruals and things like that. So, because there's a ton of timing, you got to think, the timing issues with the lottery have to be severe, in terms of when cash is coming in and when it gets paid out. Obviously, we had the extreme example of a Montana Millionaire not cashing the check or not presenting the ticket, right? So that cash sat on our balance sheet, right, for a full year before, and it nobody even never came and claimed it. So then you gotta wait. So now it's just, there's all kinds of timing issues, but this type of methodology will lead to us just kind of looking at, okay, what do we actually have here that's concrete that we can transfer? And I think that's the methodology, as I understand it, that's been used here to come up with a conservative number to approve a financial and approve a transfer. So that's why I feel comfortable, approving these financials.
I need to ask a question from position of very elementary understanding, which is another way of saying ignorance. I'm just not a financial guy, but since we know this has limited reliability, is that the correct term? What does it mean for us to approve it? I mean, and I'm not asking, does that mean the transfer happens? I get that. I understand that. What does it mean that we approve it, knowing that it has limited reliability?
Okay, so one thing I would not do is communicate to the public that that you're doing great. You know, I wouldn't spin these results into your marketing information, for example. I would always be very transparent about, and that's one of the reasons why I use that term, limited reliability. I would, you know, always qualify these particular financial results in any type of decision-making process, that we need to be cognizant that our revenues appear down on the financial reports, which may or may not be reliable, right? So, in fact, I know that most of the revenues are going to be reflected in the fourth quarter. So those numbers that show that your revenues are down should not be reliable. I would not make any decisions based on those numbers. I would look at other numbers.
It's okay. Commissioners, if you make a motion to accept, you can make it qualified. In that motion, say, based upon this, you know, I vote to accept it based upon that. We understand that this is a limited. I think that would be about the safest way.
Good counsel. Let me ask a follow-up to that. If we were to accept this, understanding that it's has limited reliability, are you advising that we do that on the assumption that it'll all be trued up in court?
Yes, my expectation was that the fourth quarter results and the annual financials for fiscal year 24 will be true.
Yeah, if we didn't.
We did make the transfer, we did in violation of state law. Which is, I don't know about you, but I'm not anxious to do that.
Well, you're the one going to jail.
I don't know, I think it says the commission.
Yeah.
Chairman Tony has his hand raised.
Commissioner Hubble.
So if we were to make a motion at the appropriate time to accept the report as presented and also as part of the annual report, would that clarify it enough for everyone?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's necessary, Tony. I don't know. You know, again, this is kind of, you know, uncharted waters here, but I mean, I think that, you know, I'm certainly familiar with these ideas of like, you know, a qualified thing. I think that we've, throughout our discussion, this whole thing has been completely transparent on where this thing is at, and this is a public meeting, and everybody kind of knows what the condition is here, and the fact that, you know, but we don't need to, you know, beat a dead horse, but we're in the position we're in. We're moving forward. I think we've heard some steps that are going to the timing of this kind of coincides with the fiscal year end and have a better financial next period. And so, yeah, using that qualified approach, I think is the right way to go.
Can I add just another piece of information for everyone's consideration? So the numbers that are in these financial statements are not wrong, right? So they tie back to Savers. And so I can cut off the numbers at March 31st. And we know that there's a number of numbers or adjustments that get posted after March 31st. But the numbers that you're seeing in front of you are supportable. They tie directly to what's in the accounting system as of March 31st.
I think that's probably again, looking back to a conservative approach, I think there could have been adjustments made to make these look better, more, comparable, but that's just the conservative nature of this approach, I think is the right way to go. Here's what's in the system, here's what we know, right? Because we know, for example, that $10 million for Montana Millionaire is sitting somewhere, right? Like they went through the cash, actual bank accounts and stuff and seen that these deposits were made. It just wasn't posted to, so it's a formality. There's a level of formality in accounting report. Again, it's sometimes annoying, but there's a reason for it. It's a good reason why we're trying to do this conservatively. It's like, just look at what's actually there. Because that's what's on the books and that's what we can go back to and support. So.
Just to echo what you're saying, in fact, it was intentional.
Yeah.
I've made the recommendations to the lottery that these quarterly reports transfer over to a more budgetary basis so that you guys can have information that's so it's actually just kind of part of the transition process that those accruals want to be posted to the accounting. Instead, you'll just take the savers data and that's the number that we'll see for this quarter. And so that budgetary basis, in fact, has been intentional.
Yeah, I'll try one out.
Yeah. I move that we accept this report. Additionally, understanding that it's a limited right to liability, which issue will be addressed?
So we have the motion to accept the report, financials under that conditional basis. Any further discussion or modifications to that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. Again, thanks to Chet and Billy and everybody. You guys have all worked hard on it. And yeah, look forward to hearing, seeing the final financials and seeing where this thing actually at the end of the day. So see, I should just go back to talking about that.
It's an easy thing.
This is Armin always like, oh, this is the boring part. Okay, no, now that's the fun part of the meeting. Okay. So now let's get to the real action here. Let's turn it over to Phil for the IT report.
For the record, Phil Charpentier, IT Services Director for the Montana Lottery. I promise you my presentation will not be as long as that. Since the last commission meeting, the IT department has been super busy this past quarter. We have tested and deployed the Mega Millions matrix change in production. The latest $20 progressive treasure play game, Ruby Casino, was also deployed to production this spring. Lottery and Intralot are constantly testing and checking for edge case issues in our test environment and in production. We have tested and deployed several maintenance items to correct newly discovered issues this past quarter, even before they present themselves in production. We're doing great on that front. Moving forward to the next quarter, we've also been testing and coordinating with our partner vendors an update to our website, our Players Club, and our mobile application. This is a significant project with several departments involved, making design and functionality decisions, testing, providing assets such as artwork and language to use on the new website and mobile apps. We have already sunset the prior Players Club environments with a big final promotion called the All-In Second Chance Drawing. We allowed all our Players Club members the opportunity to use up their saved bonus play credits for that final drawing. before that platform was idled down. Now we are performing the final design and testing on the new environment. And the marketing team will be ramping up advertising for that launch soon as well. We have not publicly advertised a date for this launch because we're focused on getting everything done correctly rather than hastily. But the launch is tentatively planned for early this summer. Additionally, the IT department has been testing summer promotions for individual sales agent location events planned this summer, as well as preparing for our big statewide summer promotion that will commence after the launch of the new Players Club. So that's exciting stuff. I'm probably stealing some of Ann's thunder. I apologize. Every February and July, we perform a central system switchover test, and this year is no different. Intralot has been running our central systems from their backup office for both our traditional games and our sports betting games here in Helena. We will be switching back to the primary location in July, Duluth, Georgia for traditional and Billings, Montana for sports betting. So we're planning on that coming up in July. By the way, last week, despite the best efforts of a rogue squirrel's attempt to cause chaos, our primary facility handled the power outage just fine, as well as the lottery office. We were on generator, on UPS and generator, so no issues there. Finally, in closing, to provide an update for the lottery operating system RFP. I have to be cautious here with the information I provide as we are following the procurement process, and I will not share any information other than what's publicly available. We have received all responses from the bidding vendors. The opportunity to respond closed on June 2nd at 2 p.m. Currently, I, along with the rest of the evaluation committee, are preparing to score those responses individually. We will come together for a consensus scoring with our senior contracts officer from the State Procurement Bureau. Her name is Anna Lubick. Once that process is complete, there is opportunity for in-person vendor interviews if needed. And that process may take up to 2 weeks, 2 additional weeks to complete. So at that point, all scoreable sections of the RFP will be complete, and the procurement department will have determined the apparent winner. The procurement department will reach out to each individual commissioner who has signed the NDA, and you all signed the NDA, to provide all information needed for each of you to make your determination. I anticipate Anna will be reaching out to each of you mid-July, is what I foresee happening. Anna will be available to each of you to discuss, explain, help understand the process that was conducted, how the evaluation committee came to their conclusions, and the outcome of the consensus scoring. She is your resource while you review that data. So once we know all the commissioners have what they need to review our results, the lottery will reach out to you and schedule an interim commission meeting, ensuring that you have enough time to review the data and understand it, where you'll be asked to concur with the director's determination for the apparent winner of the lottery operating system contract. And we talked about this in prior commission meetings. So once you concur, we can then finalize negotiations with the apparent winner, get the contract signed, and start moving forward with the conversion process. Again, I want to reiterate that at this point in the process, that's all I can say I can provide to the commission. But our assigned contract officer, Anna Lubick, is available for each of you. If you have any questions on anything to do with the process, what to expect, when to expect it, etc. My goal, her goal, Montana Lottery Agency and the Procurement Bureau, we all want to ensure that we're following this process to a T this time, which helps us all in the long run. I will provide each of you with Anna Lubick's direct contact information as well. That's all I have, unless there's questions.
Yes. In an email you sent me earlier, you mentioned that, let's see. You're in this process, you're following procurement laws, rules, policies, and executive orders. Could you make sure that I get a list of what those executive orders are? The other things I can look up easily. The executive orders, I just like to see what their impact are on this process.
Certainly, I will follow up with, yeah, I'll email the group.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
In summation, yeah, expect the lottery to reach out for an intern commission meeting. Most likely giving you the opportunity to review. So we're looking at late July for that meeting to discuss and hopefully concur, so we can move forward.
Okay, perfect. All right, Intralot update with Mr. Johnston.
Good morning. At Johnston, I'm manager for Intralot, for the record. First on the staffing front, we have 2 new hires in our office. Corey Durkee is our new bench tech. We hired him April 28th. And Kimberly Patterson is our new admin assistant. Previous one retired in January. So happy to have her on board. We have 1 vacant position as our business analyst. Still trying to get that position hired here in Helena. We do have support from our corporate office. One of our offices in Ohio is helping us out. And lastly, most recently, we've digitalized the logging and tracking of our terminal preventative maintenance process. This is helping our teams, our hotline team, our field service team to be more proactive, more responsive to this process. It allows us to, if changes are needed, we can find us something quickly, get that out to the field, and so far it's been great process, and happy to definitely found ways to improve it. All I have.
Good. Any questions for Patrick? Great. Thank you. Let's move on to Director Ann Sharpett here for a marketing and sales.
Good morning, everyone. Right, yeah. There. I'll just start with shit. It's okay. So
Apologize. Oh. Sure.
yes. Here it is. Okay. So again, good morning. We'll be going through the sales first, and then I have some action items that you are probably aware of. We have a couple things to vote on. So we'll just go through sales first, and of course, at any point in time, if you have any questions, just holler. So starting out with our sales performance so far for this fiscal year. We start by looking at our performance compared to last year's performance for the same time frame. Although our total for all products is just slightly below last year, many of our products are performing well. And as we head into the later part of Q3 and in 4, as we all know, jackpots, they drive sales. That's what definitely brings our player to the sales agents. This year, our jackpots have been very low, which is why we are seeing those negative percentages for the bigger jackpot games like Powerball and Mega Millions. Products performing well are the Montana specific products, so like Sportsbet Montana, Treasure Play, and Montana Millionaire. All products we will be taking a little bit closer look at as we go through the next slides. So Lotto America is one of the national jackpot games that is actually performing outside of the norm of the other national games, in that it did experience a significant increase in sales due to a very large jackpot. That jackpot got hit in Tennessee last week. So unfortunately, we were hoping it would win here, plus that we would see a little bit more of a growth in those sales. But with its hit, it goes back down to 2 million. And it was great while it lasted. We were promoting it quite heavily here in Montana. Next one. Did want to talk about Mega Millions briefly. This does show a decrease in the sales due to the $1 billion jackpot during the beginning of last fiscal year. Our game change that we did in April went very well. And since then, we have seen an increase in weekly sales. The $5 price point has been received well by players. Some certainly chose not to play due to that increase, but overall players do see the value in that purchase and are sticking with the game. We are hopeful that the expected increased and frequent jackpots will be realized more in fiscal year 26 as we move forward. And keeping with Mega Millions, did want to just touch on the kind of the prizes that players are experiencing. We did want to summarize that with this expect this game enhancement that we put out there, we are seeing increased wins at all prize levels with the game. The average win amount has increased significantly, even though there may be less tickets being played, which is largely due to the lack of a large jackpot for Mega Millions since the game change took place. More prizes are being awarded for those tickets post-launch. So it's good news there. And hopefully we'll just get better as we see the jackpot grow. So moving on to Treasure Play, we had a great start to the year, helped with some decent progressive jackpots, and those jackpots continue to help us as we go into the fourth quarter. The end of the $30 game made way for a new $20 game that you guys did approve for us several meetings ago. Ruby Red Casino, which is a $20 game, was introduced and has a current jackpot of almost $40,000 and is performing quite well. Treasure Play is doing well with that 7% increase. And then moving on to sports wagering, Sportsbet Montana. As I reported in December, wagering remains consistent and maintaining a 5.5% increase from wagering last year. Basketball and hockey finals have been high performers for the product, along with steady sales being realized by the professional baseball betting. The summer brings a lot of international soccer, which continues to grow in popularity for the book, as well as preparation for professional and collegiate football, which will be here before we know it in August. So, okay. And next we'll talk about Scratch. In comparison to last year at the same time, it is performing very strong with a 4.8% increase so far in comparison to last year's last fiscal year. This is due to the continued popularity of the second edition of the $30 Millionaire Maker game, as well as the Bonus X family of games that just launched in May. Selling at the $2, $5, and $10 price points, those Bonus X games, the multiplier features are definitely resonating with players right now. So doing well. And as we talk about Scratch, I do want to bring up Jay Bond, our Scratch product manager, who's going to just talk briefly about the plan for our fiscal year 26 Scratch launch and what we have planned. So Jay, would you mind coming up? Thank you. I have it in my.
What are you doing?
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
Well, good morning, everyone. I think it's this every year. It's basically just a summarization of what we intend to print for FY26. I think everybody's maybe has a list of that, but don't really need to bore you with every little single category, but So we're looking at 8 $1 games in total for printing in FY26, 7 at the 2, 6 games at the 3, 8 games at the 5, 5 at the 10, 2 at the 20, and 1 at the 30. In total, so we're looking at 37 games in total, which puts us under budget. So we've got some room to, possibly do some other licensed properties or some value add printing enhancements. That's down like 3 games from FY25. A lot of that's due to we printed some games late in FY25 that are going to carry over in FY26, which is typical. That's usually the way things happen. And then just some other highlights. In January, we had an in-house planning meeting with our scratch printing vendor, Scientific Games. They brought 2 people out and had quite a few folks from the marketing team. They provided us a ton of really interesting data, probably more so than they ever have in the past. They took kind of an in-depth analysis of Montana Lottery compared to other lotteries, smaller lotteries. And we made some strategic shifts based on that data. And so we're going to do some strategic shifts in FY26. I mean, nothing earth shattering. We're going to reduce the number of bingos and crosswords at the 2, for example, just because we were heavy in that and we were heavy in the industry as well on extended play games. So we're going to be replacing those games with what we call non-extended play and trying coming up with some unique play styles at the $2 category. Players will still be able to play bingos and crosswords at the $3, $5, and $10 price points. So like I say, it's not a huge shift. We're just kind of shifting things around. The higher price points continue to be strong performers for us. 5s, 10s, 20s, and 30s. The $5 price point is performing really well. So we're probably going to launch a couple extra 5s this year, or not this year, but in FY26. So part of that whole planning session, we came up with what we call a FY26 launch plan, something new for us, which kind of took a snapshot of the whole entire year, slotted games in by the month of what we intend to launch. Usually we haven't gone that far out. Usually it's around 6 months, but so we did, long story short, we did a ton of planning in January. We spent 2 full days here, a lot of great conversations. We came to a lot of consensus on some strategy shifts. And then right now we've begun the process to analyze payout and prize structures and in order to optimize the net transfer to the state of Montana and do additionally enhance player experience within our portfolio. So that was kind of one long sentence, but so any questions at all on what's going on in the world of Scratch? Zan mentioned it's performing well, so that's good.
And I'll just add into that, and I think it speaks to the great job that Jay is doing and the whole team is doing. As I've been in some of these directors meetings, and that kind of the standard right now is everybody's wondering how they're going to retain their our Scratch is growing, theirs is dropping somewhere around 6%. They're seeing a reduction in that, and I think it really speaks to the effort that's being put in here, and as the team as a whole is doing. When we talked to them about, when I mentioned to them that ours is we're kind of out of the norm. You know, but I think that speaks to like I say, the great job that everybody's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll also like to say, you know, it takes all of us to pull this scratch off. It's not, thanks for the comment, Bob, but I mean, it's an effort. It's a big effort among all of us. You know, from me planning on games and that kind of thing, all the way through the marketing department, all the way through the LSRs. Nothing would happen without the, you know, the LSRs and of course our retailers are the lifeblood of Scratch. So
Very much so. So this is an action item for the commission to approve the plan that you see before you. Of course, you'll still continue to receive game information from Jay, as you always have, you know, when it's specific games that are being launched. But this gives the overall plan for the year and an action item is so.
Okay, any questions for? Should probably ask for any public comment too at some point, but first the commission, if there's any questions for Henry J on this before we. Any public comment out there? Okay.
I think the motion to accept it is.
Okay, moved in second. Any further discussion? Hello? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. The launch plan is approved. Thanks, Jay.
great.
Good work.
Thank you, Jay.
Thoughtful
thanks for your
process.
time and, yeah, just keep printing tickets.
All right, let's do it.
That's it. That is the plan.
Okay,
All right, so we're moving into another action item for the commission. We're going to talk about Montana Millionaire for our raffle, our plan for 2025. And as you know, every year we go back and evaluate sort of what occurred and what we plan to do for the next year. So that is what we're bringing in front of you today. So next slide, please. With, you know, that record year that we had last year behind us, and all the prizes have been paid out for the game. So we don't have any left prizes to unclaimed to throw it at the general fund, unfortunately, but we're glad to see them all claimed. We are now tasked with providing you with this year's design. As a quick reminder, I just wanted to throw up what we did last year, just for purposes of comparison. We had 4 $1 million grand prizes. We introduced our $250,000 Monday drawing, which occurred at the very beginning of December. And that was in lieu of the early bird drawings that we had for many years prior. The game performed amazingly well. It sold out in 2 hours and 46 minutes, which was far exceeded our expectations. No question. I think everybody's expectation. So that's just a quick rundown of last year. And then looking at what we are proposing for this year. We are proposing that we do for 26. It's not much different than 25. There are definitely some key changes. What we do want to do is increase the number of tickets that we're giving away to 120,000 for a total of 620,000 tickets. We have added another $1 million prize for a total of 5 top prizes of $1 million. The increased ticket count also allowed us to add more instant wins at the 100 and 500 prize level. We would like to maintain our $250,000 Monday drawing, as players responded really well to this change from the early bird drawings that I had mentioned prior. And as we always like to do, we were able to slightly improve the odds to the top prize win, as well as overall odds of winning. So we always try to maintain that or make it just a little bit better if we can. So those are the key elements of the game. You can see the prize structure there. I am available, of course, to answer any questions that you might have about this design. And again, this is an action item for the commission.
It's pretty similar to what we did last year then, I guess, add some more tickets, add some more lower tier prizes, add another million. See how that-
Essentially, yeah, what we're doing, yeah, exactly. And we've been doing this now for years.
Right.
This has sort of been the approach of Millionaire is to, those incremental moves forward with it. And this is our 19th year of Millionaire. So next year will be our 20th anniversary, which we may, come up with something a little extra to do fun, to
Raise the
celebrate.
price to 50.
Yeah, there you go. Great idea, Leah. I'm writing that down. So yeah, and we want to, the intent of adding tickets, of course, was that we would extend the life of the game, and the time frame for ticket sales. That has changed dramatically over the last few years, as we know, getting faster and faster as we go. One thing I will mention about this year is that the November 1st, which we always have the game start on, is a Saturday. So that's going to be a little bit different for not only for us, but for the sales agents as well. But just another component of this game this year will be a Saturday morning sale day. So. Any questions or concerns?
Tony, any questions for Ann on any of this changes?
No, I like the idea.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, and then public comment on this one before we vote. The room.
I just have a question about this. The 72, what's this? It says that it depends on the night. And please, do you have to actually apply or is it just automatic?
So the $250,000 Monday drawing, because it's earlier, the whole game time frame is actually November 1st through December 31st. So it's whatever amount of tickets we sell, presuming we wouldn't sell all of them.
Gotcha.
It would be whatever amount we had sold at that time of the draw.
Years past prediction is probably 100%. I mean, 100% are sold. By
exactly. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. You bet.
Anything online?
Mike, is there anything online? I don't see any raised hands.
Not seeing public comment at this time.
I entertain a motion to approve it. 2025 Millionaire game change. Okay. Yeah. Second. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Appreciate it. We'll get moving on all our planning. So, all right. So, kind of sticking with the Millionaire theme, we have a new game design to bring to you today. This is Millionaire for Life, a game designed to take the place of Lucky for Life, which is a game that we've had as part of our portfolio since 2015. The Cash for Life and Lucky for Life game groups, which are two separate groups that have these two separate games, have actually come together to create this replacement game called Millionaire for Life. Something tells me that you can guess the top prize of this game.
Mm-hmm.
So going into the details here, you've received the game description document as well as the game rules that have been approved by the National Game Group. And those are the two documents, this one here and the one that is Sans logo at the top there. Some notable features of this game I want to point out would be that we're adding 10 numbers to the matrix. So we're going from 48 numbers to 58 numbers for the players to choose from. The top prize will be $1 million a year for life, with a secondary top prize being $100,000 a year for life. The game cost does increase as well. So it's going from a $2 purchase, which we have for Lucky for Life, to a $5 purchase. So this is very similar to what we did in the change for Mega Millions just back in April. Displaying to the right are the other 7 prize levels that are offered in the game. So not only those top 2 prizes, but we also have a whole bunch of other prize levels that people can win as well. If there are any questions about this, I have one more slide just with the price structure, but I want to, see if there was any initial questions that can be answered here. Okay, we can go to the next. So the complete price structure is displayed here, showing all prize levels and the overall odds, which are 1 in 8.46. The launch is currently scheduled for mid-February of 2026, and this date is still being discussed by the game group and finalized hopefully very soon. We'll see. That timing is a bit of a challenge for us, as we know we're going to have a very busy winter schedule, but we are confident that this game will be a really big hit with our Montana players. We don't have a logo as of yet. The full game group is working through logo decisions right now. We actually made a vote yesterday with our favorite logos that they're considering, and hoping that maybe even by as early as tomorrow, they'll have a logo selected for the game. So as mentioned, you do have the game rules, which are what we are adopting here today, if this is a game that you want to participate in. Lucky for Life does not stay around. It will go away come the launch of Millionaire for Life. So this is a replacement game to Lucky for Life. So just for clarity there. What questions can I answer for you?
So this one was kind of an interesting one with the different groups and a certain, like Lucky for Life, I think was something Northeast, wasn't it coming out of Maine or something? Or-
Yeah, it came out of Connecticut.
Connecticut, yeah.
And Cash for Life has been one that is like Illinois. It's got some other, Northeast and South states that are participating.
But it's not a muscle game where
It actually will be. I mean, they're helping to manage it.
Bring it on board.
Say.
Okay.
Exactly, yeah. And they are the ones that are coordinating it. They're helping withdraw processes and things like that. But yes,
Okay.
it will be muscle. As Lucky for Life was as well. It was that game group was separate from what you would call like a muscle game group.
Right.
But muscle was involved in helping to manage the
Gotcha.
draws and things
Okay.
like that.
The same applies for Mega Millions. They have their own game group, but Muscle
Oh, okay.
coordinates everything.
Mhm.
Gotcha. It's one of those things where if the commission doesn't want to do this, it just doesn't.
Good, yeah.
Correct. We wouldn't
There's no
have it.
indication to the specific rules or that we don't have a lot of control. It's a take it or leave it proposition.
Right.
And you guys are recommending we keep this game.
We are, I think this is a definite upgrade to the Lucky for Life game. We've heard the Millionaire for Life brought up by our players and our sales agents as well. Does that ever change or, and always, something that people will say to us, that'd be a really great prize. We agree, and so does the rest of the United States apparently, because this is what they really want to move towards. They no one of each, Cash for Life or Lucky for Life, could offer $1 million prize like this if they did it separately. They had to come together because they need the population, they need the playership, this player sales to obviously pay and support that price structure.
And currently our Lucky for Life sales is 50 to 60 grand a week.
Yeah, we're a little higher. We're about, like 60 to 70 on a regular basis. It's a daily game. This will remain to be. And it definitely resonates with players here. They do love it. We've had winners. We have had a Lucky for Life top prize winner. We've had 4 of the 25 a year for life winners. So it's a game that people are aware of. They know we have winners. They play it and do enjoy it. And it's very different from your jackpot growth, progressive jackpot games that we have with Powerball and Mega Millions that are always in this constant growing state. This is a set top prize, very easy to understand and desirable as well.
Any questions for? Hearing no questions, any public comment on this game?
Not seeing any public comment at this time.
Okay. You guys, is something the commission wants to take on. So I entertain a motion to accept this new replacement game for Lucky for Life.
I'd make that motion.
Second. Yep. Second, thanks, John. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, approved.
Thank you very much,
Thanks, Ann.
everybody. Another game that we will get going on. Let's see, next slide, please. So as Phil had mentioned, one last item that I just wanted to touch on was the launch, the planned launch for our new website, mobile app, and Players Club, scheduled for mid-July, right in there. It has been a long time since we've made changes to any of these existing assets, and it was long overdue. Working with our vendor partners, we have created all these dynamic assets to be seamless in their design, provide greater value to the player and public that utilize the tools that we have available, and provide our supporting lottery staff the ability to manage these products much more efficiently and with greater utility. We are really excited about this launch. This is something that we've been working towards for a while. And, you know, a lot of the functionality and everything remains the same. It's just the way that it's being presented and also the way that we're able to manage it on the back end. So it really does, we're just really excited about what this will bring for our players and for our agency. So, and just to wrap up, we do have many things that are going on. Next one. Again, now that you've approved Millionaire, also Millionaire for Life, we will begin all of that work to start planning for those launches. We have the product profitability optimization efforts that Jay touched on with Scratch. We're doing those optimization efforts with all of our products, as well as we're continuing to grow our sports betting revenue. We've got all of the NFL, NCAA games, football, but MLB, MMA, and golf are really popular as well. And we continue to support all those with marketing messaging to our players and to the sales agents. We have obviously our central gaming system changes coming up, and we are in the process of also doing some long-term planning in the marketing department for 27 and 28. So we've just finished 26 planning, and with that, we are moving into 27 and 28 to try to get a little more planning in place and for the department. That's all I have. Are there any questions I can answer? Yes, sir.
I have a question about the previous screen.
Yes.
That important note on the bottom left.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Makes me curious about the data that we have. Someone has as a result of people creating and using accounts.
So we do not collect anything that would be considered PII. Personal identification, and Brian, I don't know if you want to spot you. I know you speak to this often.
Total policy regarding PII. Share that information. And then any of our contractors can. It's not up the law. Then they also, to go further, they have to maintain proper IT security, meet the, what's the standard? Can't remember the number. It's a sort of standard out there that they have, and then when they do their audits, they can provide us a copy. So, good.
Okay. So 2 questions. One, is that based on Montana statute somewhere? Or is it just a policy?
We have, I can speak a little bit to this. We do have the state's privacy policy that we follow, and we offer as part of all of the assets that we provide. It's always available as part of our footer for for everything. And we follow that, and that is the state's overall privacy policy that everybody uses.
So.
I can offer a little bit more information on the technical reason why we have this important note. All players must create a new Players Club account regardless of prior accounts. So what we've ended up with the Players Club is over 225,000 members. But in order to be a Players Club member, you essentially need a name, address, and email address. And you can put whatever you want in there. So we have a lot of stale accounts, and this will allow us the opportunity to tighten that up. If you truly want to be a Players Club member, that email address you provided will get an email saying, hey, there's a brand new site, brand new account. And if they choose to transfer that information over at that point, they can do that. But I think this will consolidate our Players Club membership and give us some accurate numbers as to the true count of people. Coincidentally, there are second chance drawings involved. You can put John Smith at 123 Testing Lane, but if you win a prize, there's going to be communication. And if you're not John Smith, you're going to have to provide your accurate information at that point. It's an FYI.
Yeah, my concern is vague, maybe like lots of concerns, but A, complying with privacy laws, and B, that people account owners aren't subject to marketing, unwanted,
sure,
let's say, as a result of their having an account.
So and they can opt in and out for messaging, certain types of messaging.
Well, I'm not talking, sorry to interrupt, but I want to be clear, I'm not talking about marketing Montana Lottery. I mean, some third party that's acquired this data set, which I think could be valuable to some industries.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, to that point, I mean, where the data is stored is secured. It's our third party, it's our vendor who's maintaining that data, and it's absolutely 100% secure and following all policies and procedures for IT security.
So I assume that the Intralot help us?
Yes, Intralot's helped us, our ad agency has helped us tremendously. Yeah, it's been kind of a collaborative effort, really.
This will be proprietary to the Montana Lottery if something happens with the RFP or something else.
Right.
Nothing, that's necessitated change to the new situation, so.
I mean, that's all part of negotiation if there is a new vendor, of course. Yeah.
Okay, good. Anything else for Anna? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Moving on to Director Brown, the legislative update.
Legislative update. Well, it was an interesting session, as we all know. Tomorrow I go before the Legislative Audit Committee to present this 23 audit. We'll take care of that. Legislatively, realistically, there was when we started the session, there was about 30 bills I was tracking. None of those really, anything really affecting the lottery really came to fruition. I'd say that's about it. It all worked well. I think we'll face the same, there'll be some of the same issues continue to come up every session. Until who knows when, you know.
Good. Sounds good.
I feel like I should have had Senate Bill 232 passed, but that was the bill that reversed previous.
Oh, yes, the procurement
exemption.
Exemption. Yes.
So.
Yeah.
So we see what the governor will do with it, maybe nothing, it should be just fine. So.
Okay. All right. Any other anything else from Director Brown or staff before we transfer public comment here?
I think I'm good.
Good.
I have a question. Well, I noticed on the states, I think I don't know if it was DOA or what, they were out for commission positions. Did you see that?
I have not seen that, but I'll certainly look at it.
And I wouldn't have either, but somebody contacted me, said, what's going on? Basically, I think they were advertising for every commission position. You see that?
Yeah, I think it was on the governor's office.
I don't remember where.
Somebody coordinates the board, positions, so.
I just wondered what's going on. 'Cause I mean, I know they didn't go through that confirmation, but
One of the staff of the governor's office, I was speaking with him, and he said they're having a real hard time filling all of the commissions and groups. And not necessarily ours, but I mean, all of them statewide, which I find interesting.
I'm curious because as commissioners, we have to be Senate confirmed, right? No.
No.
What happens in the interim if
Appointed, like me, I was a.
We're appointed.
yeah, we were appointed, but then we had to go to the Senate.
We-
It would be-
So we actually dealt with the lieutenant governor on this issue. We spoke to her and because we had the same concerns, we had people's terms were coming up and the opinion that we got from them was you will continue in your position until you're replaced. And they will let us know when they make decisions. So that's what we were told.
And then also, just like in any position, they have to advertise, if there is any position available, it has to be advertised, for the public domain, so they can, anybody that's interested can apply. And then they would work their way through that. But
I'm just curious, now that I'm retired, I have to factor this financial gain that
I know a good accountant, you can maybe think it straighten you out.
Probably adjustment board pays. And if you live here, there you go, a new job.
I want to add though, I'm quite sure all of us were appointed to a certain term.
Yes.
My term expires January 1st, 2026. So.
mine is expired.
Yours is expired.
Yeah, and I think that legal opinion of the lieutenant governor is sound, definitely. But it is a little curious that they're advertising to replace positions that aren't expired. I'll just leave it at that. If my retirement takes a hit because I can't be on this, I'll.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just was looking online here and it says that there's on the governor's appointments and it says current openings. And there's the 4 different openings for the lottery. So the legal representation as well as, it just says apply now, it's the current. It says current opening, under current openings, it says that, so it's something that probably, especially Steve, you might look at, does Steve have to reapply for his position? Or John, do you need to reapply or not? I think that's.
$100 a year you're giving them,
Well, but I looked at that and I have to reply. There's a thing on there that says already currently.
We'll get an answer for you and get back to you.
Handle it. So I don't want to take that big hit.
Yeah.
Commissioner, I can also
It's
tell
so
you,
fun, lately.
Metropolis, yours still says 12/31/24. If you've been reappointed to 26, it still shows 2024.
Thank you, I understand.
You guys are voluntarily taking meetings.
Well.
That's
I don't even need to say it. No. Okay, anything else? public comment or anything online, Mike?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I feel like I should. Or my opinion anyway, leave here is that if anybody has questions, why are we making these decisions if we're not appointed? That's why the lieutenant governor's opinion is important. She checked the law out and we are still authorized to do these things until we place. So there's not a problem with not having the authority to do it just done. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. All right, next meeting, is looks like scheduled for Thursday, September 11th. See who's still on here. Yeah, okay, that's any major problem jumping off the.
Do you know when the Montana Tavern Association convention is?
Oh,
Shawna?
yes, September 15th.
The week after.
Okay.
Let me verify that. Yes, September 15th, 16th, and 17th.
Right.
Thank you.
So I just want to point out that we will be reaching out to you for a meeting in between this and September
Okay.
11th as well. Yeah, for the RFP.
You bet.
Mr. Chairman, if we change the meeting in September till 10 o'clock, I'll save you the $100 for my hotel room.
Yeah.
Okay. In the winter, it's too dark to drive, but I can drive in September.
Okay. That's fine with me. Yeah.
Thank you.
And anything else for the good of the order? Entertain a motion to adjourn. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Thanks, everyone.